Hello and welcome everybody, it's Karen. I've got a couple of shaker cards for you today and I'm using these Paper Rose Studio supplies. I've got this really fun, whimsical, colorful paper, Betty's Garden. And you can see here just how fun this paper is. I fell in love with the birds and those flowers right there and just thought what a fun birthday celebration type card that would make. So here I'm just showing you a few of the papers just so you can see what they're like. And these are the die cuts that coordinate now with the paper and they match it perfectly. So there are all these little birds and flowers. You can see there the birds just totally coordinate. The flowers are fun because they've got all these different sizes in them. So you can go from great big ones to little ones to teeny tiny ones. And then there are some really fun little sentiments there as well. So this is the first shaker card. This would be the easiest of the two to make. I've just cut a 4.5 by 6 inch piece of that little bird cardstock. And I'm showing you here, I've got this gel print that I'm going to put over the middle. And the reason why is because I felt like this shaker mix shows up much better against the more solid background than it does against the birds. But I hate to waste paper, and so I'm going to trim out this centerpiece of the bird paper, and I will use that for something else. And you'll see later on where this green piece of cardstock or bluey green piece comes from. But I've glued it now over that opening, and I'm just adding some die cuts to this. And I've cut a piece of acetate now that's about 1/2 inch wider on all 4 sides. And I'm scoring that acetate in 1/2 inch again on all 4 sides. Now where those corners meet, it's hard to see this acetate, but I'm just trimming off that corner. You don't need that, and it just adds too much bulk to the shaker. So trim that off. And really I should have at this point cut a little wedge off the ends, but I forgot. So you'll see that in a bit. But I'm adding double-sided adhesive now to all 4 sides on the back of my card front, and I'm putting it back in place in the acetate in between those fold lines. And then on the long side of one of them, I will remove the release paper and fold that acetate down over it. And here's the point where I realized I'd forgotten to cut the little wedges off. So now you'll see on the ends, on each corner on the end, I just take a little tiny wedge off, and that just gets rid of some of that bulk to neaten it up when you go to fold it. You don't want to take a lot, just a little tiny wedge piece there. And then when you fold that down, it will go nice and you'll have a nice edge there. So here's the third side coming off, and I fold the acetate over again. And I do like to burnish this, just really press that into the double-sided tape. And so now you've got a pouch with an opening at the top, and you can put your shaker mix in there. And then fold the top layer over, and again remove that, I like to check, and make sure that there's enough shaker mix in there. But then remove the release paper and fold the top piece of acetate down and over. And so that's the shaker now, and it moves really well in this shaker. It just, there's nothing to slow it down. It just flows really freely. So I'm gluing the back now of my shaker, and I'm putting it down onto my card base. So that's a 4.5 by 6 inch card. And then I've die cut the word celebrate 3 times from white cardstock and once from this pattern paper. And this die comes with a shadow layer, so I've die cut that from black cardstock, and I've stacked all these layers up and glued them together, and this will go on the front of my card. Now at this point I thought, well, it's missing something at the top. So one of those little die cuts from the Betty's Garden die cuts had this sentiment. So I've just glued that to the top there. And that's my shaker card. Super fun. It really moves easily, that shaker mix. Okay, so here's the second card, which is a bit more complicated, I would say, but still a nice shaker card. So I have used the Radiating Rays background die, and I've die cut that from white cardstock, and I'm removing every other ray there. Now I'm trying to decide which row this piece of pattern paper will go in, and so I take the coordinating piece of paper cardstock from the die, and I've put that over the edge that I want to use. So that's all I'm doing here is I'm just going through trying to figure out which pieces of pattern paper will go with which ray and on which edge. So once I have that done, I just used my trimmer and I just cut a tiny piece that was the width of the ray. I should have measured that, but I don't remember what it was. And then once I did that, I put the piece of pattern paper back into the Radiating Ray die with the pretty side face down. So that's the side that I will cut, and just taped it in place. And so then at the end, after I got all my pieces organized, then I ran it all through my die cutting machine. So I'm just adding more layers here. Now, with the white cardstock front, I am going to glue that. I've cut a piece of acetate that's about the same size, and I am gluing this down, this white cardstock frame down to the acetate layer. Just trying to keep it as square as I could. And then I had a little bit of excess, so I trimmed that off with my long scissors. And now I'm putting the cardstock layer down front side into the Radiating Ray background. So the white cardstock is into the die. And I taped it all in place. So on the back it's all acetate. Now I've got my Radiating Rays in the order I want them to go in, and I am putting some, I use the Cosmic Shimmer glue. It dries clear, but I'm spreading it over the entire front piece. I did this once before and I found that even though my glue dries clear, I could see the squiggle marks where I had just put a little bit of glue onto the piece of paper. So here I'm spreading with a sponge over the entire front and then putting them back in position. So there you can see now it's still a bit milky white, the glue, but it is spread all over and it will dry clear. Now I also cut from Craft Foam that same Radiating Rays background die, and I did that twice. And so now on the back of this card I have put a little bead of glue and I'm adding the white frame. And you do want to be careful with the foam layer that you're not stretching that craft foam too much. So I'm putting it back on, and now I'm going over each of these pattern pieces. So I'm gluing right onto the acetate, and then I take the coordinating piece of craft foam and attach that on. And all of this is just to give you some dimension to allow the shaker mix to move around inside. You could possibly do it with one layer, but I personally find 2 layers makes it move more easily, so I did do the second layer. So there you can see that's the front of the card. I've got a little bit of glue, and you can use, if you do get that, just use some alcohol, rubbing alcohol. I had 91%, but 70% works. Just a bit of alcohol to remove the glue. Okay, so here I have divided my shaker mix out. I've just, you could put it straight under the way it comes in the mix, but I personally like the idea of separating this out, so that may be an extra step you don't need to do. And I've cut a piece of cardstock that's just a little bit wider than my shaker front. And I'm putting in here all these different mixes, all their color coordinated compartments. And my craft foam had adhesive backing on it, but if you don't have that, of course, just put glue on. And then once you've got your mix in, add your extra piece of cardstock that you had cut ahead of time. And I did put mine under an acrylic block just to let it set up. So once it dried, then I could just trim off with my long scissors that extra little bit of cardstock that was along the bottom. Now, this is how I had that gel print. I was using this Cosmic Shimmer paint, and it really does give a pretty shine to the cardstock. I also used the cracked stencil from Paper Rose, and I chose this piece to use. Now, you know I don't like to waste my paper, so here I'm cutting out the back of this, and that is what I used on the first card. So it didn't go to waste, just so you know. So now I'm going to glue my shaker down to that card front that I've actually applied to the card base, and sticking that down and just letting it set up again as well. I think just because it's a shaker card, I get more nervous about it. But here I'm just gluing down some of the really fun die cuts from the Betty's Garden die cuts, and that's my shaker card, and it's so fun. I love that it is color coordinated, I have to say. It just adds another layer of fun. So thanks for joining me, everybody. I hope that's given you a little bit of inspiration and some more ideas. Thank you very much, and have a great day, everyone. See you next time.